Hi, it looks like I am live. So welcome to this week's Q&A. I wanted to talk about bone health, but I want to make sure there aren't any questions first. I haven't seen any questions pop up. We've been talking a little bit about magnesium and blood pressure the last few weeks. And so those are important as well. You can always go back and look at those videos if you want. So a lot of people in my world have been involved in some bone issues lately. So I thought I would talk about those and how they're related to other things as well. It's a lot of times with the bones, we're also talking about muscles and they can be, how do we take care of them? How do we keep the bones nice and healthy? And then what all can go wrong, right? So we get injuries from falls, sprains, and strains. Those affect muscles and bones. Pain, muscle spasms. I had a muscle spasm in my leg last night. Inflammation, arthritis, autoimmune conditions, hypothyroid, thyroid medications. Those are very strongly tied to bone issues, as well as many other autoimmune conditions. Osteoporosis, of course, infections. You could have bone infections or muscle infections. Hair loss can be related. That can be a sign there's something bone weakening going on. The same with brittle nails and tooth decay. And I have to tell you, so many people are worried about not getting calcium by not drinking dairy. And you can go back and look at my articles that I've written. And when I've talked about dairy, when we drink dairy, pasteurized dairy especially, it's very acidic. And so it costs us calcium, even though it has a lot of calcium in the dairy. And so it's very acidic and very harmful to the bones. So we have to be very careful taking in dairy. Now, I have been eating completely dairy free since 2016 or 2017. I'm not like some of these other people who can tell you exactly when they quit. And my nails, they grow so fast, and we can see they're a little too long right now. I have to cut my nails constantly. I'm definitely getting plenty of calcium. And so it's not something that I worry about. So there are some nutrients that we do need. Everyone always talks about calcium that we need, and some people even take calcium, but you have to be very careful, because if you don't also have magnesium and vitamin D, then that can throw off your balance. We have to be very careful when we supplement with a single supplement, though sometimes that is needed, because it can throw the balance off, and then that messes up so many other things. That can cause muscle spasms, that can cause constipation or diarrhea. So we have to be really careful. We need the right balance for contractions, for contract and release, to contract and relax. And we think about contracting and relaxing when we're lifting weights and moving our arms and our legs, but we have other muscles inside our body that also need to contract and relax that we don't have control of. Think about your heart. We also have peristalsis going on, which is contractions in the digestive tract, which sometimes you feel spasms. And so we want to make sure that we have all of those, everything going in the right balance. So be very careful with taking high amounts of certain supplements just because you read that you need a certain supplement. Do your due diligence, do some research. And so there are some different tests that your doctors can look at. Another thing that can throw off your bone health can be hormone imbalance. So that's another thing. Most of our doctors, they don't look at the different types of estrogen. We have 3 types of estrogen. They only look at one, or they look at a blood test, which isn't very specific to tell you what's going on in the cells. And so we just need to make sure that your hormones are in balance too, to maintain the appropriate amounts of especially calcium. So there are some foods that can affect bone health. I talked about the pasteurized dairy, excuse me. Non-pasteurized dairy, I'm not exactly sure about. I still don't drink it. I don't recommend it because of the high calcium, but especially pasteurized, which is what you buy in the stores. That includes cheese, that includes yogurt, all of those things. And so those are very acidic to the body. High salt. So I do like salt, especially for people who have adrenal dysfunction. Salt is needed, but too much salt can lead to calcium loss. Soft drinks, that is a huge one. They're very high in phosphoric acid. Sugar depletes calcium. So even if you're drinking sweet tea, so many of my clients here in the South, the sweet tea is a staple, and all of that sugar depletes your calcium. So you have to be really careful about that. It also depletes your B vitamins, which are needed for everything, even for energy. So people drink soft drinks with caffeine because they need a pick me up, but what's happening is depleting their B vitamins and they can't create their own energy. And it also depletes iron. So soft drinks need to go, especially the diet ones. So everyone thinks they're doing okay drinking a diet soda, but there are plenty of studies out there now showing that the sugar substitutes, artificial sugars and sweeteners, those are very hazardous. Get rid of them. Caffeine. So 6 milligrams of calcium is lost for every cup of coffee. And so we definitely, if you have bone conditions, calcium is being lost if you're drinking coffee. And so that's weakening your bones on top of an already bad condition. Heated oils. So I talk about heated oils a lot, and I know a lot of people, they really struggle with this. I can't roast anything without my oil. Yes, you can use parchment paper. It won't stick. It's been forever since I've put oil roasting vegetables, and I roast vegetables all the time. Brussels sprouts, potatoes, carrots, any of those. Now, if you have blood sugar conditions, I know that roasted carrots are one of those things that many of you cannot do, or potatoes. But once you're in balance, then you can eat those foods. But I roast all of those things. I roast things all the time, and I never heat oils because that's very hazardous to my health. It also destroys vitamin K, which is important for our blood vessels. I already mentioned that sugar depletes calcium. It also depletes phosphorus and your B vitamins, and increases your cortisol, which we talked on several other videos and in some of my articles as well. And then gluten, that interferes with intestinal lining. That can also lead to weakened bones as well as refined grains, because all the micronutrients are depleted. When we have any refined grains, even though it says that they've added back minerals, they haven't added back everything. They've stripped all these vitamins and minerals, and they only added back a few that they think that we need, but we're missing some really key nutrients. So anything that is in a box or a bag that contains a flour, that is going to be weakening your bones. I mentioned the dairy. There's a huge imbalance between calcium and phosphorus, and it's also too high in protein for the body, creating acid. Too much protein. If you're eating too much protein, then that causes acid in the body and leads to calcium loss. Also, when we eat too much protein, the excess is converted to fat. It's very easily converted to fat if your body can't handle it all. It's too more than you need. So if you need to lose weight, you need to make sure you're getting the correct balance of protein, and eating plant-based proteins is much better than animal proteins. Nightshades can lead to painful conditions for some people. So if you do suffer from arthritis, then sometimes it can be helpful to avoid those, cut them back, and see if it makes a difference. Take that's tomatoes, that's potatoes, eggplants, tomatoes, potatoes, eggplant. I can't think of any others. Peppers, bell peppers. If you take those out of your diet, that's really hard this time of year, right? That's what we're starting to have out in the gardens. But if you remove them for 4 or 5 days and then add one back and see what happens, if it makes makes a difference in your pain and your inflammation, then you'll know. If that does cause inflammation, then remove it, and then you need to work on some gut healing, and then you should be able to add them back. Most people can add them back. I hate to exclude anything forever like that, especially when it's by something brightly colored, because we know we want all those nutrients. And too much vitamin A. So be careful if you're taking supplemental vitamin A. A lot of people, if you have an autoimmune condition, you have cancer, you just have genetic tendencies. I have the genes where I have trouble converting vitamin A. So I know I need to eat more orange and red foods. And those are cooked. When they're cooked, we get a better absorption of those vitamin A, the beta carotene. And so cooked tomato sauce, things like that, that's going to be better to help absorb the vitamin A. Eating sweet potatoes and things like that. Taking vitamin A, it can build up, and that can also increase your fracture rate. So be very careful taking supplemental vitamin A. It's also stored in the fat. And so a lot of people can get too much vitamin A. Children have died from overdosing on vitamin A supplements. So I don't recommend supplementing with vitamin A. Find excellent sources of foods and eat foods that are very high. Those are your reds and your orange foods, and get your vitamin A tested. If you do test where you're too too low, then you may need to supplement with vitamin A, but eating your colorful foods is very helpful. For muscle health, you want to make sure you're eating potassium rich foods. We think of bananas, but there are a lot of foods that are rich in potassium. Once again, colorful fruits and vegetables. Your B vitamins, zinc and copper. We've heard a lot about zinc since the pandemic. That's been recommended. It also helps with taste and smell. But if you have too much zinc, you throw off your copper balance and you don't want to supplement with copper. So you want to be really careful with those. Nutrients for bone health, we hear about calcium, but there's like boron and chromium, copper, again, iron. So I don't recommend taking iron supplements, especially without a doctor monitoring your status, because iron can build up and your body will not get rid of it. Also, there are a lot of people who are have hemochromatosis, where the iron especially builds up. And so don't supplement with iron, but you can look for iron rich foods. Now I use Yellow Doc. So that is a supplement that contains lots and lots of minerals as well as iron. Iron is a mineral. And so that is something that I use occasionally. So you can also just have yellow roots, chop it up, make a tea, something like that, make your own tincture, or you can purchase tinctures as well, and have your iron checked in your annual lab work at least. Magnesium, potassium, once again, for muscles and bones, and zinc and your B vitamins, vitamin A, D, and K. They are all very important for the bones. I'm not licensed to recommend certain supplements, so I'm not going to talk about dosages or anything for that. But we can use foods. Foods are our medicine, right? I should have worn that shirt today. Food is medicine. The top bone building foods, number one is prunes. Now, if you have blood sugar conditions, make sure that you test prunes. If you eat prunes, check your blood sugar and see what happens after you eat it. You don't want a large spike in blood sugar if you eat prunes, but prunes are number one for helping with bone health. They're very high in vitamins and minerals. Green leafy vegetables. Greens 3 times a day. Dr. Esselstyn, if you're not familiar with him, if you know someone with a heart condition, which I think all of us do, it's the number one cause of death, right? Dr. Esselstyn has written several books on reversing heart disease. He recommends that his patients eat greens 7 times a day. And so I tell you to eat 3 times a day. But dark leafy greens are excellent for bone health as well as heart health as well. So get in your greens as much as you can. Seeds, especially chia seeds, you want those omega-3s. They're also high in calcium. Pumpkin seeds, very high in zinc, and sesame seeds, very high in calcium. Almonds, high in calcium. Brazil nuts, high in selenium, which helps with thyroid, which helps with bone health. Your sea vegetables, very high in minerals. Avocado, very high in minerals. Cruciferous vegetables like the dark leafy greens. Cauliflower is a cruciferous vegetable. It's not green, but it's also excellent for bone health as well as hormone balancing, which helps with bone health. And broccoli sprouts, figs, like the prunes, those are very good. And they're coming into season right now. Our tree smells fabulous, but we don't have any figs to pick yet. And black beans are wonderful. If you want to turn to herbs, nettles, stinging nettle is all in my yard. I don't know if it's in yours, but nettle is wonderful for the bones. It's so high in minerals. It's the highest. That's what I wrote my thesis on. I love stinging nettle. Horsetail is another one that's excellent for the bones, but horsetail you don't want to have raw. So you don't want to buy a horsetail powder or horsetail dried and put it into a smoothie. You want to make a tea with it, and then you can use that tea in a smoothie or in an elixir. You could put it in a soup if you want to make your own broth and then just strain the horsetail back out, or you can even eat the horsetail. It doesn't taste really good. It can get stuck in your teeth. But it is recommended, especially if you can get it in like a powder or something, but you just want to make sure that you soak it first. Alfalfa, you can get powdered alfalfa. I like alfalfa. So these are very high in vitamins and minerals. They're a part of my vitamin powder mix. Nettles, horsetail, alfalfa, oat straw, red raspberry, peppermint, red clover, and comfrey. These are all extremely high in vitamins and minerals. So they're very high for overall health, and they're also excellent for bone health as well. I saw someone pop one, but I don't see any questions. Other things that are important for your bones, staying hydrated. Make sure you're getting at least half your body weight in water each day. Eating nutrient dense foods, all of the colors, eating the rainbow, high water content foods, exercise, exercise, exercise. We have to put a little strain on the bones and the muscles to get the bones to keep rebuilding. Our bones are, we think of them as like a rock, like they're hard, but bones are constantly changing. They're breaking down and they're rebuilding. They are our mineral source. We have minerals in there that we use for different parts of our body. And our body, the blood runs through, it's taking minerals out, it's making new blood cells, it's rebuilding constantly. And so we want to make sure that we're eating all the colors of the rainbow and that we're putting some pressure, some strain, so that they keep rebuilding and growing, getting plenty of sleep. Remember, rest to repair, rest to digest, and rest to repair. So we have to make sure we're taking time to rest. So we don't want to exercise several times a day, every day. We want to make sure we're resting throughout the day. And we want to make sure we're getting good quality sleep so that the body can do its repair process. So that's part of de-stressing, relaxing during the day, taking time out. And then you can do things like dry skin brushing to help detox and remove toxins, and getting out and getting sunshine for vitamin D. So not too many not too many hours out in the sun. Make sure you're getting out there just for a little bit to get your vitamin D, especially this time of year. It's there. So you can get it in the morning or in the evening. You don't have to get it right in the middle of the day, but it's important to get some vitamin D. So we talked about the different herbs. An alkaline diet is very important for your bones. And so I talked about things that are acidic, like dairy, but so is too much protein, especially animal protein. So you want to turn to more of the plant-based proteins like seeds, which are very high in your minerals and calcium and magnesium, and your dark leafy greens, which are also very high in minerals. I think that that is all I had to say about bones. I'm not seeing any other questions pop up. So I think that I will sign off for today. So if you have any questions for next week, if you like this video, let me know. If there's something you learned, let me know. I'd love to know that. And if there's something else you want me to talk about, I'm always open for ideas. I want to make sure that this time is for you. So have a fabulous week.